Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college football. It is officially the back end of the regular season. We are 2 games away from the season being over before we get into bowl season. We're kind of hitting the home stretch of the season here. A lot on the line for the UNLV Rebels, who the San Jose State Spartans play this week. A lot on the line somewhat here for San Jose State trying to play spoiler for the Rebels as the Spartans and the Rebels get together for a primetime showdown Friday night, Mountain West after dark. This Friday in San Jose. That is a 7 p.m. Pacific kick. We got a whole lot of stuff to talk about this week. Both the Rebels coming off a win, the Spartans coming off a disappointing loss versus Boise State. But let's bring in a guy that not his first rodeo here on the Sports Sentiment. We had him on before the season started. We've had him on for numerous other episodes for just to talk Mountain West. So former sports editor for the Scarlet Gray at UNLV, Ryan Gilder. Ryan, welcome back to the pod. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. We've been doing this for a while now because you went on our podcast a couple years ago. We've just always been guests on each other's stuff for the last couple years. So pleasure to be on and happy to talk about some good UNLV versus San Jose State football.
Oh yeah, I mean last year's matchup was a high leverage one, right? It was kind of the both teams. UNLV obviously had the historic season last year, really caught the entire conference and even country by storm with the season that they had. It was way above expectations, and the Spartans and the Rebels met in Las Vegas last year. And, San Jose State kind of took the Rebels to the woodshed. I know UNLV kind of had a late comeback late, and I know the game ultimately didn't matter because the Rebels still got into the Mountain West Championship because of all the computer composite numbers and all that stuff. But this year, I mean, San Jose State, they're out of the Mountain West Championship, but this is a very important game for UNLV. They're going to need, and you could correct me if I'm wrong here, but should it be that complicated? A win for UNLV and a Colorado State loss. I don't know what the tiebreakers look like, but that's kind of the path for the Rebels.
Yeah, it's just we talk about Colorado State, and it's a cupcake schedule. It really is. They have a really easy Mountain West schedule. They didn't have any games that were really that difficult. Probably their hardest one was against Oregon State so far this year, but they had an easy schedule, and it's leading them right now to possibly going into the Mountain West Championship. But if they lose and UNLV wins out, UNLV definitely had a harder Mountain West schedule and this straight up schedule, amount of points scored. UNLV leads miles over Colorado State. It just, if Colorado State has a win over UNLV, it doesn't matter what the computer generated rankings say. Colorado State's going to have the lead. So we'll see what happens. And the issue at UNLV, which we'll talk about, is how the defense lacks in the second half, like the very, very back end of seasons. But it'll be a fun one.
Colorado State, I believe, has Fresno State, which is like on paper kind of their most difficult game of the conference season. I mean, they've just played all of the the bottom tier teams, and I know they've had some rivalry games with some Mountain West foes along the way. I mean, San Jose State, they're 6-4 on the season, 3-3 in the Mountain West. You and I talked before the season started. The expectations were very low for San Jose State. Year one with the new coach, a new coordinator, a whole new regime out there in San Jose. And the fact that they're 6-4, I think, is pretty impressive with the 3-3 Mountain West schedule. I mean, you can't ask for anything better. But I thought last week was just a game versus Boise State where they had the chance to pull off the upset. When you're up 14-0 at home, sold out crowd. I mean, they had it, and ultimately there was a big decision for them to. They could have kicked a field goal off a special teams turnover to go up 17-0, but they decided, hey, let's go for the jugular. Let's go for let's go for it all, and for a touchdown on a 4th and goal. And they ended up running a trick play to the left guard, which I thought was pretty interesting, but it didn't end up working out. That gave Boise State some momentum. Ultimately, for the Broncos to outscore San Jose State 28-7 in the second half, a 42-21 Boise State victory. I have to say, one of the most misleading scores of the year. I mean, San Jose State was in that till the very end.
Yeah, I do agree. San Jose State, they were in that game for a while because I had Boise State. I know you don't like that, but I had Boise State covering the 14-point spread. And I was sweating the entire time. Like, it was not an easy win for Boise State. The thing about this Boise State team is that they can score really quick. And once they had the momentum of the game, they could pull away, and that's what they did at the end of it. But it was a close game. I was worried about San Jose State winning money line in that game at some point. So it was a close game throughout. And then at the very end of the game, Boise State pulled away. But like I do agree with you, that score was very misleading in that Boise State game.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Lockhart had a career high in receptions and receiving yards, 10 catches, 172 yards. Nick Nash was in that 100-yard range with several catches as well. He gets a heavy dosage of receptions. He had himself a touchdown in this one and just got announced he is in the Bolitnikov semifinalists. That was announced this morning with 10 other wide receivers. So Nick Nash is doing some things that we've never really seen in San Jose, and that's really getting some national attention. So good for him. We've talked to him a bunch this season, and he's definitely taken advantage of being in a big time power, passing offense, air raid type offense out there in San Jose. So Nash and Lockhart have definitely gotten going. Ricky White for UNLV. I mean, this is kind of like the wide receiver one who I think is going to be playing on Sundays next year. I mean, what does he have? 800 receiving yards this season. I mean, what we need to talk about with him is the fact of that he's got a bunch of special team stuff going. Like he's got like the 3 block punts, right? And I think that's very uncharacteristic for a wide receiver, right?
Yeah, it's crazy like how much special teams presence that both him and De Jesus have this season. Normally in the NCAA, the wide receivers only do a little bit more in the special teams department than in the NFL. Normally in the NFL, they'll have special team specialists, but that Ricky White, De Jesus, they both wanted to be in the special teams game. De Jesus more of the kick return. He did that more last year, but Ricky White really came up this year big in that punt block department. He rushes better than anyone else in the entire, I think, country. And he has 3 block punts. And also, he stopped a fake punt last week against San Diego State. He made the tackle. So he's everything out there. And I think he likes it because he wants to get more touchdowns. And if he's able to put his own team in better field position, it puts him in a better position to get more touchdowns. So I think that's what Ricky White likes. And it's been unbelievable, the special teams unit at UNLV.
Yeah, I mean, the UNLV Rebels, I mean, just building on what they did last year. Number 23 in the country now after the AP Top 25 came out this past weekend. But 8-2 overall, 4-1 in the Mountain West. I know your 2 losses are kind of head scratchers in a way where, like, man, we had them there. The overtime loss to Syracuse at home, and then the Boise State loss at home. I mean, you guys played Boise State outside of Oregon. I mean, Oregon got the dub over Boise State, but out of all the Mountain West teams, the Rebels that played them the toughest, you guys really sold out to Ashton Genty, and he was dealing with an arm injury the whole game, and really forced Maddox Matson, Boise State quarterback, to really, beat you with his arm, and he did. He kind of went on that 8-minute drive to kind of command the offense and, ultimately put the Rebels to bed there. I know you guys want that rematch here, but man, UNLV, I feel like if that's the Mountain West Championship game, man, that could be a really fun rematch.
Oh, that would be that's what America, I feel like, wants. That's why I feel like the Mountain West. Actually, the Mountain West, I don't know what they want. I think they might want Boise to go to the CFP. So,
oh yeah,
they might just be rooting. Oh, no, what? Let's just have Boise win out the entire thing. But if UNLV plays Boise State in the Mountain West Championship and UNLV wins, who gets into the playoff? Because I think UNLV, they can make the playoff at that point. What do you think?
There's definitely a backdoor opportunity. I feel like it's one of those things where it depends what the score looks like, right?
Yes.
Like if Boise State just doesn't show up, which I mean, I don't think that's going to happen personally. Like they're going to show up. If they're going to lose, it's going to be on a nail biter. But I think maybe their resume is good enough where it might still be okay. But at the same time, you got to be the Mountain West champion, I feel like, to get into the college football playoffs. So I think that's the big thing, right? And I don't know about the CFP rules and all of that, but I think you have to be the conference champion to get in.
It's the top 4 conference champions and then the best group of 5 champion. So
that just opens up a whole can of worms.
Yeah, the loser of the Mountain West Championship's out. Unless if they think Boise State deserves to be in the top 12, which they very well could.
Now,
Even
see
if they lose the
that
game,
that's the thing because they're already at 13th, but with a loss like that to UNLV, I know the metrics are good for the Rebels, but still,
yeah,
uh, that's going to
it's
be really
crazy.
tough. So they gotta take care of business.
But what I think that we should pat ourselves in the back with is how well we projected this Mountain West season earlier in the year. Like we projected it pretty well. We were like, we like teams, like we like Colorado State. We thought that San Jose State they were a rebuilding year, but we really liked Nick Nash and how he was going to do this year. He's had a great year this year. We talked about UNLV kind of like they're in it, but we liked Boise State the most because of Genty, who's having an unbelievable season. As we already knew that going into it. And then I remember we were talking about we both did not think that Malachi Nelson was him, but we thought that Boise State would be able to win without him, and they did.
Right.
So we really hit the nail on the head with that one.
The only two teams where I'm kind of like, whoa, like I can't believe they're this
And,
bad was Wyoming
yeah,
because I
Wyoming.
thought because I thought Boise State plays Wyoming this week. I thought this was gonna if Wyoming was anything good this year, I thought that was gonna be the ultimate trap game special there for Boise State. And then Air Force. I mean, I know they're picking things up now. They finally got the quarterback situation figured out. I think they'll be a play on team during the second half, during the back end 2 weeks here of the season. But
Yeah,
man, the way that offense has just scuffled all year long is surprising for a Troy Calhoun team. I will say that. So I mean, Air Force, that's a team that's always a consistent bowl team every single year. They're not going to get there. So that's definitely tough for the Falcons because I know they're always a brand name in this conference every single year. I want to talk about, UNLV and just kind of where things have been because we had last time we talked was the start of the season and we got to talk about this quarterback situation here
yeah.
because Matthew Sluka, I know things didn't end very good at
It
all.
ended pretty bad.
Pretty bad. I mean,
Yeah.
but he did a very good job for the first 3 weeks of the season at Kansas. You guys beat him. I think that was on a neutral on the soccer field over
It's
there.
technically their home field, but it was like their non-conference home field. They
Yeah,
did non-conference games at the soccer field, conference games at Arrowhead.
yeah. So you guys, regardless, you guys beat Kansas, and then you won at Houston, which was definitely good. You guys beat the FCS team, Utah Tech, and then Matthew Sluka comes, he walks out the door, and then here comes Haj Malik Williams. I know we talked before the season that this was a quarterback job that was pretty competitive with Sluka and Haj Malik Williams, and I know you ultimately thought Sluka won the QB1 job, but if something happened to Sluka, no matter what happened to him, I mean, there was a lot of confidence with Haj Malik Williams, the Campbell transfer. And I mean, oh my goodness, like what this guy's doing over 1,400 passing yards for 14 touchdowns, only 3 picks on the season. I mean, 600 rushing yards with 8 rushing touchdowns. Just, man, I knew he would be good, but like, it's almost like an upgrade to Sluka.
Yeah, I think it is also because Luka he didn't throw the ball that well. He's a great running quarterback, but he can't throw the ball that well. Hodge could throw the ball a little bit better, and his running ability I don't think is as good as Luka's, but it's good enough. It's plenty good. He's a good running quarterback, but I still feel like we haven't hit Hodge's ceiling, and I think the only person that would affect him from reaching his ceiling is himself. I feel like sometimes I just feel like he's too cocky on the field. And that's why I feel like he did really good at the beginning when he was first starting quarterback because he was humbled by not being quarterback one. And then he goes out there, he does really good. He has his team on his back. And then after a couple of weeks of winning, then it just seems like there's something just like off. Like that Boise State game. Wasn't throwing the ball very well. Everything he was running, like he was trying to run, he was trying to control the game by himself. He was a run first quarterback that game. And that's why I feel like that we lost. And then against Hawaii, I didn't like how he played. And then he started to do a little bit better against San Diego. But it's gonna be can he get out of his head, be a humble quarterback, and get it done at the end of the season? Because UNLV the last couple of years they look good, and then the back end of the season they fumble. Can they flip
And
the script this year?
And I will say this: so the Rebels are coming to San Jose on Friday. It's a short week for both teams. You guys get even the shorter week because you have to make the 1 hour plane ride to San Jose. But this has been a one-sided rivalry the past couple of years, and I know you know this. This has kind of always been like the gauntlet for, the Rebels. Can we beat the Spartans? I mean, you guys haven't beat San Jose State since 2019. And I know the Rebels haven't been the greatest of program prior to your great season last year, but the Rebels are clearly the better team. San Jose State still with a whole lot to play for. I mean, I think this is going to be a close game, a high scoring shootout, because what I've seen from San Jose State here with just all the mobile quarterbacks that they've had to deal with this year and what Malik Williams, the success that he's had on the ground, I think the Rebels are going to be able to score touchdowns. I think San Jose State with Nash and Lockhart and the emergence of Lockhart the past 4 weeks, him having over 500 receiving yards in the past 4 games. I mean, I think the air raid will be going for the Spartans. Malik Williams will be going with Ricky White and Jaden Thomas, who we've yet to talk about in the backfield. I mean, last team that touches the ball in this one could win. And San Jose State, I know they are definitely looking for a top 25 win versus an AP top 25 team, because that hasn't happened in over a decade.
Wow. I didn't even know it's been a decade since that. But this is the best ranking UNLV's ever been. And ever since they've been an AP top 25 team, they're 0-1 being an AP. They never won a game as a ranked team. So both teams have a lot to play for. This is the best. We were ranked 25, and all of a sudden, we had 5 votes last week. I did not think we were gonna get ranked this week. I was like, well, we're gonna win and get a couple more votes, but I didn't think we would be close to being ranked. And then we're ranked 23. I was shocked because we lost our game against Boise a lot, but we still have only had 2 losses. That matters a lot, but I did not think that UNLV was going to get ranked this early. And honestly, I'm a little scared because now it's oh no, now all the pressure's on UNLV because of that. So I feel like this is the year that UNLV can do it. And I really do. It's just the only thing I'm really concerned about is their defense falling short in the back end of the season, because that's what happened for the past 2 years. Ever since I've been a part of UNLV, since I've been a freshman. Freshman year, they were just terrible. They didn't win a game. And then sophomore year, it was they were good and they were decent. All they needed to do is win 2 more games in 2 months to make a bowl game. They only win 1. And then last year, my junior year, they were good. And then out of nowhere, at the very end of the season, they start giving up 40-plus points every week. Bowl game, they gave up over 40. They gave 37 to you guys, and then they lose against Boise by a ton. So the back end of the season, just tons of points given up every week. And that was my question. I asked Barry Odom. My first ever question I asked him when he became head coach was, and I brought it up last time. I bring it up every time because it matters so much. Is what's the defense going to do in the last couple weeks of the season, and how are you going to make sure that they play defense well, and how do you make sure they're conditioned, because something happens to UNLV in the back end of every season defensively. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. We have a good defense, so Jalen Catalon and Cameron Oliver and Jackson Woodard, those guys, they're really good this year. And getting Marcel McDuffie back from injury matters a lot.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, we already know about Jackson Woodard. I feel like he could play for almost any team in the country because he's that good. And I know he came from an SEC team, if I'm not mistaken. But Jalen Catalon, I mean, you kind of named off a plethora of UNLV defensive players that you could have make an impact, and he's probably been one of the more impact players this year outside of Woodard. I mean, second in the team in tackles behind Woodard, and 5 interceptions this year. I mean, he's been very good at the cornerback position. I know he's going to be probably going with Justin Lockhart because Nick Nash, you could put him anywhere on the field. And I know there was a bunch. I mean, Nick Nash had about 5 different dudes on him this year or last week versus Boise State. And just overall collectively this year, no one's been able to really stop him, but everyone's been overloading on Nash. That leaves Justin Lockhart one-on-one. I mean, that's what the difficulty of defending the Spartans is, because now that they got Walker Egan at quarterback, I mean, he's really starting to get the chemistry going with those guys. And not to say his long ball has been very impressive. Emmett Brown's long ball was very good to start the season, but Walker's is just as good. So there's gonna be a lot of deep passes in this one. We've seen it from the Spartans all year long. But UNLV, I mean, they cannot take those pass interference penalties. There's going to be a lot of back and forth, I feel like, between Catalan and Lockhart. They're going to be talking their smack
Yeah.
all game long. But man, if both of those guys get going and Nash and Lockhart, I mean, this could be a very dangerous game for the Rebels.
Well, Anoa will be able to break up chemistry and kind of limit the damage going on, like passing the ball wise. You don't have to worry about the receivers as much as you get good pressure on the quarterback. And we talked a lot about the first time, like who's going to be that guy on UNLV that's going to be pressuring the quarterback. It's been Woodard, it's been Marcel McDuffie, but you also got to watch out for Antonio Doyle on that edge rush on the defensive end. Because when all three of them are clicking, it's really difficult to have a lot of time to pass the ball, especially if you want to go deep. You're not going to have as much time. And if you're limited on time, you're throwing while being hit. That's what causes these interceptions with Woodard and with Catalan. Like, you don't get 5 interceptions in a college football season just because you're playing good defense. He does for some reasons, but a lot of times because of defensive front, making the quarterback have to throw the ball under pressure, and then Catalan is at the right place at the right time. That's what's been going on with this UNLV Rebels team, is that the right players have been at the right place all the time, and that a large part comes from that defensive rush at the end. So I think how that defensive pressure is at the front line is going to depend how many points San Jose score, how many points San Jose State's going to score this game, because it doesn't matter who you have defending Nash and Lockhart, they're going to get their fair share. But if they don't have any time to get the ball, they're not going to be able to get as many receptions. They're not going to make as much of an impact.
Yeah, and that was the problem last week versus Boise State. Really good in the first half, the offensive line was, and then Boise State slowly but surely started to blow up the line of scrimmage. They started blitzing a whole lot more. That led to the turnovers, which the turnovers were massive in last week's loss versus the Broncos. UNLV, and they're trying to improve to 6-2 with Haj Malik Williams at quarterback as a starter. And before we close things out, Ryan, I know you and I we talk Mountain West all the time. You and I will go back and forth sometimes, talk about the scores and all that good stuff. I know you guys want to be in the Mountain West championship game, but do you ultimately see yourself there? And does Boise State make the college football playoff? And do they win a game in the playoff?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors into it because, like, I'm not a genie, so I can't say that they're going to win or not because I don't know who Boise State's going to play, and there's still a lot of time until that happens. As UNLV, do I think they could win out the season? Yes, but does that mean they make it into the Mountain West Championship? Not necessarily. There's so many factors that you have to plug in. But here's what I think: can Boise State win out the Mountain West? Absolutely, we already know that. Is Colorado State going to be competition for Boise State? I don't really think so. I think that Boise State would crush Colorado State, especially.
I would agree.
Would UNLV give Boise State competition anywhere on earth? Yes. I think that even though they're at Boise will be the favorite. And even as a UNLV student, as someone covering UNLV, UNLV would not be favored in that game. Most likely, Boise State's going to win this Mountain West still. It depends who they play in the playoff. They could still be in position to get a top 4 spot because if Colorado or BYU wins the Big 12, no matter who wins the Big 12, is that better strength of schedule and better than Boise this year? I don't know. So Boise, if they get a home game, and you're telling
That's
me
what I'm saying.
If a team needs to go to Boise and beat them there in the winter, that's dangerous. That's very difficult.
And I'm just trying to think, okay, if the stars were aligned, okay, like the 4 seed, I know they would actually have the bye, and then so the first round of the playoff, they're all at the home fields, and then after that, they're on neutrals. So yes. Let's just say they are playing the first round.
Neutral.
So the first round of the playoffs are only they're at the campuses, and then after that, they're at like Mercedes-Benz Superdome and all of that.
Yeah, but even though you're the 15 man, doesn't mean that you get the 5 seed. You could be the 12th seed as that conference champion. So that seeding also matters because are they a top 4 team in the country? I don't think so. But could they get a home game? I think they're good enough to get a home game if they win the Mountain West.
Yeah, it's gonna It's going to all determined by the Power Fours.
Yeah,
That's ultimately how it comes down to.
Because I don't think it should be the 12. I don't think it should be number 4, but they could be like one of those teams in the top 8. They could be number 8. They could get a home game. And if Boise, they get a home game against a team that has 2 to 3 losses in the SEC or Big Ten, if Penn State was going to Boise, I don't know. I think that's a difficult game for Penn State to win. They had trouble beating USC at USC.
Right. We've seen all those Big Ten teams. We've seen all those Big Ten teams, like with the new realignment. When they go across 2 time zones, it's not so easy.
But you're telling Penn State, okay, you're going to play at Boise State for their biggest game in school history. That's crazy. That's going to be a difficult game for them. So I don't think it's a walk in the park against Boise State. So I think here's my projection. If Boise State gets a home game and they play a Big Ten team, I think they'll be an SEC team. They get a Big Ten team, I think they'll win.
I would have to agree. If they go on the road, I think it would be an uphill battle, but I think it'd be close. Depends on who it is.
I think that's. I just feel like here's the thing. I feel like the Big Ten teams have been a lot more susceptible to losing the out of conference than the SEC. The SEC's had bad losses, but within their own conference.
Right.
That's been the issue with that conference. That it's too good that they've been losing more to themselves. They haven't been losing as much to other conferences. If Boise State need to travel to the SEC and play at a school over there, I don't see Boise State going to Tennessee and beating them. I don't see that happening. But let's say you have one of these Big Ten teams that like lost a couple of games, like you get like Penn State. Like I don't even know like what other teams in the Big Ten, like them, Ohio State. Like if they have to go to Ohio State, like I don't see them winning that game. Like I don't see Boise winning that game. But I can always be wrong.
Yeah. Hey, I love chopping it up with you. We could talk about all these. We could talk about all these scenarios, all these different scenarios. I mean, hey, we're talking about Boise State so much because this is with this new college football playoff and the expansion of it. This is really uncharted territory. We're really seeing this for the first time. And when you got a player like Ashton Genty, who's got almost 2,000 rushing yards, and he's going to break that this week. I mean, this is uncharted territory for this state and this landscape of college football. And it's been fun to monitor. And but hey, San Jose State versus UNLV. I know it's a big one out there for the folks out there in Las Vegas and for all the Rebel fans out there and for San Jose State. It's just another big home game for them. I expect the fans to show up and show out again because UNLV's top 25, and it was the biggest crowd last week, a sold-out crowd at CEFCU Stadium last week versus Boise State. A lot of Boise fans made the travel to the Bay Area there, and I expect a great turnout for this Friday between the Spartans and the Rebels. So, Ryan, you did a lot of good stuff for the Scarlet and Gray. Where can people find your work? And I know you're doing a lot of good stuff out there in Las Vegas. You're a busy man. It took me a lot to get you on today.
Oh my goodness! So it actually, we got like the original time that we wanted. We wanted to do Tuesday at 10, so we were able to get the timing right. I'm happy because I had classes and stuff. I had work, so it was just like
I get it.
Difficult to get in.
I get it.
But the Instagram is at UNLV Free Press, and then if you look up UNLV Scarlet and Gray, it would be the first thing on the search window. I think it's UNLV Free Press, and then the website is UNLV Scarlet and Gray. But super excited for this game. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and yeah, it could go either way. This one, and I think UNLV they got it, but just you never know of how this defense is in the back end of the season.
There you have it, Ryan Gilder from UNLV. Ryan, we'll be definitely talking down the road for college hoop season, and I'll probably be seeing you in March once again out in Vegas for the Mountain West tournament.
Yes, that'll be a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on again, Nick.
There you have it, Ryan Gilder from UNLV. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.